So our topic of the week, Linda and my topic of the week is about pausing. And I'm going to focus today on how pausing is even more necessary and more helpful during times of transition. Because during times of transition, we are the most destabilized, more so than other times in our life. And we're really more at risk to make reactive decisions or moves, actions. And so I think it's really the best to, at that time of times of transition, to step back and really consider what is the best next direction. There even is a next direction. Maybe the whole thing is just pausing and waiting to see what develops. Now, it might not feel like that's possible during times of transition, and sometimes it isn't possible, but it might be more possible than we imagine, because there's this kind of force at play when we're destabilized. It feels like a force to me. We'll become a little more anxious, and we might feel like a sense of urgency. That's what that force is like. Though I don't think that's always or necessarily the case, that it's urgent for us to do something. So maybe we could say counter instinctually, when we're really destabilized, it might usually be best to go against the grain. That's a Buddhist term, going against the grain. And it's a translation from the teaching of dependent arising. And in that teaching, it depicts how when we go with the grain, with the arising of suffering, we go with the grain. And the depictions of how that chain of dependent arising can be reversed by going against the grain. And this is what I'm really talking about today, is things that are conditioned. When we're in times of transition, we're most likely to do that which is most familiar, most conditioned. And really, maybe what's called for is a new or different kind of response. So, in other words, when we're pausing, we are going against the grain of the force of searching for the familiar, going against the grain of clinging to certainty, searching for certainty. So I remember when I was at a Vipassana retreat, long time ago, probably 30 years ago. And during these retreats, you do walking meditation back and forth and back and forth. They'd say about a 20-foot length. So there I was going back and forth and back and forth. And I don't remember how long the meditation was, but it was a long time. Maybe it was an hour. But this particular time of walking meditation, it happened every day. But this particular time, the teacher suggested that we really focus on the transition. And in this case, the transition was so minute. It was like the transition from walking one way to walking to another. After 20 feet, you sort of have to pause a bit to turn around. At least you have to stop the flow of the direction of the walking and turn around and walk the other way. And I so clearly remember this, that there was this tiny bit of stress with that turning around. Such a minute transition, and yet still there was a bit of stress. Because during transitions, we really don't know what's going to come next. And that's the skill that we're learning, really to tolerate this not knowing, this uncertainty. That's one translation of anicca, one of the marks of existence, which is commonly translated as impermanence, though often also translated as uncertainty. Now, no matter what, whether we're in a transition or things feel more stable in our life, we're never really certain what will come next. But during times of transition, we really don't know this. Things are in greater flux. There's more possibilities of things going a different way, both in that we imagine and then perhaps have gone that way before. So about a month ago, my chiropractor told me I might be in more pain for a few weeks as the seasons changed from drier to wetter, from more summer-like to more wintry. Sure enough, I experienced a couple of weeks of more pain. And then when I thought back on it, I realized it had been true the previous autumn 2022. So there it is. The body also becomes more stressed during transitions. In this case, it was a weather transition, one that I had no, control over whatsoever, except for to sort of be with it, to tolerate it. So it's not just these psychological transitions we're talking about. The body knows this on a, I guess, cellular level. So we're right now in a time of a great deal of political uncertainty. While we're somewhat certain about who the next presidential candidates will be, we are uncertain who will win. And we are pretty certain it'll make a great deal of difference. And we don't know how the hell in the Middle East will end, but we're somewhat certain that it can't stay this way forever. And we don't know how the climate emergency will shift, on and on and on it goes. I feel like we're in a time of much more global geopolitical uncertainty. But back to our inner world, because that's more what we are focusing on here. There's likely aspects of your life that feel uncertain. Perhaps you're in a medical transition, perhaps you're moving, perhaps your relationships are changing. I don't know. But consider that pausing might be the best approach. Sometimes you have to make a decision, of course, but maybe not rushing into them. Here's another angle on things. Reflection itself, what we talked about, meditation is a kind of pause, and reflection itself is another kind of pause. Or another way of saying it, reflection is a way of stepping back and taking stock. It's a function of reflection, as well as many other functions, but that's a function. And as we develop this, what we've started to call the muscle of reflection, or the capacity to reflect more, and as it permeates our life more and more, we then hopefully become less reactive. And that might be a hidden function of reflection. In a way, while we're busy reflecting, we can't be quite so reactive, we're otherwise occupied with reflecting. It really is a step back, a way to pause and allow what comes next actually to arrive, rather than rushing and trying to change things. And or to step back and consider maybe what actions you might need to take, maybe what is the best response. So I'm going to end the talk there, and we will go into our usual period of meditation,